Over the last 20 years of working in IT, I would say one of the top 5 complaints that I hear from all technology users are related to passwords. I can't tell you the amount of times working for school districts and for hospitals where I could visit one of our users to find a beautifully handwritten sticky note with their logon passwords written all over it. And don't think y'all are crafty out there putting those passwords underneath your keyboards either. All of the hackers know that trick as well. So as we navigate through the digital waters of the 21st century, the number of online accounts that we have to manage has skyrocketed. From social media, banking, email, and all of those work-related apps you might have to log into as well. Every platform requires a set of credentials. And as we're going to talk about in this video, some of these passwords might come with a certain set of criteria. Best practice tells us that we need to use a unique password for every login we have. I already know that this plethora of passwords can become a daunting task to manage. So we're going to talk about the best ways that we can create and manage your passwords going into 2023 and beyond. My name is Zach Hill, Community Manager here at TCM Security, and I will be guiding you through this section of TCM Security's free Practical Cybersecurity Awareness course. In this video, the third video in our 4-part series, we are going to be focusing on managing passwords. If you are interested in the other videos of this series, be sure to check out Alex's video that just came out last week and Aaron's video that came out the week prior. And for the very last video in the series, you can stay tuned next week for Heath Adams. All right, so before we can even talk about managing our passwords, the first hurdle is creating a secure password. And this is something that we've talked about many times before, and we even have a few videos about that specific topic here on YouTube. We'll put links in the description below so you can find those. But moving on, a common pitfall is opting for simplicity over security. While we all know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or simply just password, are easy to remember, they are equally easy for malicious actors to guess or crack. And what if I told you that fall 2023, winter 2024 exclamation, or even creating a shorter password with a mix of numbers, letters, and special characters are just as easy to not only guess, but run through a password cracker to break. So the emphasis shifts from password complexity to password length. And one recommendation that we can give is we encourage the use of longer passphrases. A passphrase like "blue frog hops at dawn" is easier to remember and harder for attackers to crack. That's why we are always encouraging longer passwords, because in the long run, they are going to be more secure. And the recommendation of using a passphrase or longer passwords also comes from NIST, and that's the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they are a beacon in the realm of cybersecurity guidelines that many organizations do their best to adhere to and follow, and we are one of those organizations as well. But even when we create complex passwords, not only will the challenge of remembering them arise, which we will address soon, often this leads to the dangerous habit of reusing passwords across multiple platforms. And if you use the same password for your bank, your email, your social media, maybe even that same password to log into your work email and apps that you have to utilize for your job, a single breach could potentially give hackers the keys to multiple aspects of your digital life. And that is a little scary to think about when we have put so much of our lives out there into the digital world. So not only do we need to create longer passwords, we also need to create separate passwords for every site that we're signing up for, especially those sites that contain sensitive information. And I shouldn't have to say that. It should honestly be for every single site that we have to provide credentials for. And as we get into the rest of this video, that's where password managers will definitely come in handy. But let's not forget the next pitfall in managing secure passwords, because this next portion can come up often, or it might not come up at all based on your personal use of the digital world. And that is the periodic changing of passwords. It's a practice that is rooted in outdated security guidelines. And this practice, while traditional, often leads to password fatigue and weaker password choices over time. Instead, NIST recommends changing passwords only if there's a suspected compromise. Maybe you get an email with a login alert from somebody coming from a different state or a different country. those could be signs of compromise, and that could be signs that you just need to be more suspicious and look into what's going on. And of course, be careful of clicking on links, but that might be a good reason to change your password. Some organizations will force quarterly password changes, yearly password changes, or some none at all, or more frequent than that even. And we're obviously going to be bound by some of those requirements. But outside of the professional environment, keeping in mind what we've learned so far about passwords, longer, complex, and not using the same passwords across multiple sites, we should really only be changing our passwords if we suspect some level of compromise. There's a great website out there where you can actually monitor this, and that website is Have I Been Pwned? And you can put your email address in there, and it'll show you if any of the other websites that you've signed up for have been compromised from their end, where maybe they have stolen your credentials, maybe they've stolen your private data, etc. But that's a great website that you can monitor every day, every week, every month, just to keep track of whether your data has been leaked out there or not. And again, it's a great way to determine whether you need to be changing your passwords or not. And it goes without saying, if you are currently using the same password across multiple websites and they're not long and complex, now is a great time to actually start changing those. And I can't stress enough the importance of the fatigue that will happen when you are constantly changing your passwords. And it's been proven time after time, the more frequent you change your passwords, the less secure and or harder to manage them they become. All right, so now that we hopefully have a good password foundation built, how the heck do we go about storing these passwords? And not just storing these passwords though, storing passwords securely is a significant concern. Writing them down on paper or storing them in a digital note are practices that expose us to unnecessary risk. That's writing them down on a sticky note underneath your keyboard. That's writing them on a notepad document that you store on your desktop. Those are going to be very risky when it comes down to keeping your password secure. So one of the best and now modern ways to store your passwords, and securely at that, can be done through utilizing password managers. In fact, NIST also advocates for the use of password managers as well. These digital vaults not only store your passwords securely, but they also help aid in generating long, unique passwords for each of your online accounts. Some of these tools even include monitoring and alerts. So if one of your accounts does get compromised or one of those websites has been involved in some type of breach, they will notify you and say, hey, it's time to change your password. And that's a pretty awesome feature. But most importantly, in my opinion, it's combining a lot of these password managers with MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. So we're going to secure all of our passwords initially with a very strong, long, complex password, as we talked about, but we're also going to provide more security by adding MFA on top of that, so that when you go to log into your password manager account, you're getting prompted on your phone or whatever device you have to help you log in further. And that just adds one step to your login process there. That adds one more additional layer to security, and it makes it that much more difficult for a hacker to gain access to all of your data. And again, this all aligns well with NIST's recommendations. I'll make sure that we have a link included in the description below so you guys can read more about the NIST recommendations, because we are talking about them frequently in this video, and we do follow those guidelines very frequently. Now, when it comes to choosing a password manager, you really have to take a look at what's out there and look through the different features and the pricing that they offer for some of these and find what's going to work best for you. Some of the most popular and most recommended password managers, however, are Bitwarden, KeeperPass, KeepPass, 1Password, and those recommendations come from current IT professionals working in the field right now. So take your time, go through the Bitwarden, KeeperPass, KeepPass, 1Password websites, and see which features align best with what you're looking for. And of course, which price range is going to work best for you. You have a lot of options out there, and one isn't necessarily better than the other. I would just go and make sure that you do your due diligence and ask for recommendations on your own. Ask your friends and family if they use a password manager, and maybe they can help provide some insight from their perspective as well. So as we are venturing into the domain of password managers, we are stepping into a realm of simplicity meshed with robust security. And password managers are not just digital lockboxes. They are your personal password guardians. This modernized approach to password managers steers us away from outdated practices, and it aligns more with the realities of today's landscape, and it helps pave the way for better password hygiene and ultimately a more secure digital realm all around. So this not only helps you in your digital world, it helps your employers and your friends and family as well. As we mentioned earlier, there are many password managers available for you to use. Generally speaking, no matter which one you do end up going with, a fundamental aspect of password managers begins with the main password, the root password, the primary password for your password manager. That's the main password that you'll use to access all of the store passwords inside of the password manager of your choice. So above all else, this password needs to not only meet those length and complexity requirements that we talked about in the beginning of this video, you must also remember this password. And again, it should only be used for this one thing and no other things at all. So our main priority is making sure we have that secure main password. And there are going to be a couple different ways that you can try to remember this password, whether that's, writing it down 20 times like you used to do in school. And there is the option where you can write that password down and store it in a safe. But by no means would I write a password down, stick it underneath your keyboard, stick it on your monitor, or even lock it in your desk. If you are going to write your password down in a physical way, that physical copy of your password also needs to be stored in the most secure location that you have access to. And I've heard of people who maybe write their passwords down in chunks, and they might throw one chunk in a book here and maybe one chunk above their cabinet. They might break them up, put them in different places, but that could add a certain level of complexity there as well, because you might forget where you placed those different pieces of paper, right? So there are many different ways that we can look at trying to not only remember, but secure this password, but it really all falls back down to making sure that nobody has access to that password. Don't store that in a text document on your desktop of your computer. Don't email that password to yourself. Make sure that it is stored in a very, very secure location. And again, if you need to write it down 20, 50 times, 100 times even, type it out, make sure none of that gets saved. But I have to stress this as much as I possibly can. It is very, very important that you remember this root password, the main primary password here that we're talking about. So once we have established that long, complex, and secure root password, now we log inside any of our password managers. And from there, really the password manager will help take the wheel. It can generate long, complex, and unique passwords for each of your online accounts. So inside of your password manager, you can add your bank account, your email account, all of your different social media accounts, and any other accounts that require a username and password. Once you input the information for all of those websites, including those URLs, you can then go and have your password manager create a secure password for those sites and have it saved. And furthermore, with your password manager creating those passwords, it ensures that high level of randomness and complexity aligning well with the NIST guidelines that we discussed in this video already. So from your password manager, it will take you to that website and log you in with those stored secure credentials. And that is really awesome, because that means you don't even have to see the password. You won't even know your password. And while that might sound a little bit scary, your password manager is there to create the most complex and secure password that it can for each individual site. So I wouldn't expect you to try to remember those passwords. That's where, again, we need to remember that one really strong, long, and complex password to log us into this password manager to gain access to the keys of our kingdom. So if you have your password manager all set up and ready to go, if you haven't done this yet, make sure that you enable multi-factor authentication for added security. And this feature requires an additional verification step. If you're already familiar with MFA, you know this process, but this will help ensure that you only have access to your password vault. So every time you go and log into your password manager, you're going to get prompted from MFA on your phone or an email to make sure that it is you logging into that account. So, for instance, to keep everything secure, if you get an email or you get a prompt from your MFA app on your phone or a text message saying, hey, somebody's trying to log in to your password manager, you'll know, hey, I'm not trying to log into my password manager right now, but somebody else is. That might be a good indication that it's time to change your password. And something that we're seeing a lot more of with MFA is biometric authentication. That is emerging as a reliable alternative to traditional password systems. They use unique biological traits like fingerprints, facial recognition. Biometric systems offer a level of security that is inherently personalized. And that's really, really good, especially when it's coming to your passwords, right? Securing them in a very personalized way. So as part of the login process, when you put your password in, you get prompted with MFA. They might also want to do some type of facial recognition to make sure that it is you. So combining the use of a very strong and complex password with MFA and biometrics even, you are further bolstering your security. And that should make you feel better about making sure that your digital life is secure. In addition to biometrics, hardware tokens are also gaining traction. These are physical devices that generate time-sensitive codes or have to be physically present to help grant access as well. And then there's also passwordless authentication, which is another frontier. Technologies like FIDO2 are enabling users to access services without the need for passwords at all, instead relying on devices, biometrics, and behavioral patterns for authentication. Another great feature with password managers is the auditing aspect of that. And that is one of those standout features there because they can scrutinize your password health, identifying any weak, reused, or compromised passwords. As we kind of mentioned earlier in this video, it will alert you and say, hey, this password that you would like to use or have used in the past, it's weak, it's been reused, or it has been part of a compromised password list. So let's change that password. Let's make it longer and more complex. Password managers will help you do that. Along with that auditing aspect, utilizing a password manager will help with the practice of avoiding periodic password changes unless there's a suspected compromise. Password managers harbor a secure environment for all of your passwords, and they help minimize the need of frequent changes. However, they spring into action, prompting a change when a compromised password is detected. So aligning with those NIST guidelines is their stance on password changes as well. So as you can see across the board, there are more and more technologies and thought and processes being put into place to help secure our digital life as much as we possibly can. And one of those starting points really does begin with passwords and making sure all of our passwords are strong and secure. So we might very well see additional breakthroughs when it comes down to managing your passwords and the different tools, applications, or processes involved in making sure that we are following best practice to keep our digital life secure. In a nutshell, password managers are not just tools. They are embodiments of a modernized approach to password security. Their features resonate with NIST guidelines, providing a practical solution to achieving the password security standards that are all followed by and recommended by industry professionals. And again, I can't stress enough how much better and more secure your digital life will be once you implement a password manager. And again, choosing that password manager is up to you. You have those resources available to you that we've provided in the description below for you to go out and do your due diligence and your research to understand which of these programs and applications are going to work best for you in your digital life. Now, believe me, I know and understand that trying to implement a password manager at this point in your life might be a little bit difficult. It's going to be very different than what you're used to. But I assure you, out of all the different things that you do to try to protect yourself online, one of the best things that you can do nowadays is really make sure that you have a very strong and secure password. As we've talked about probably too many times in this video at this point. But we have to stress that even further because all of our lives nowadays are revolving around technology and the different services that we have to sign up for to do our banking, to pay all of our different bills or buy things online. It's important to make sure that our digital life is just as secure as locking the door on our house or locking the doors to our car so that nobody breaks in. Making sure that we have a strong password and set up something like a password manager with multi-factor authentication is really locking and deadbolting all of those doors and all of the windows even for a potential hacker to get in and gain access to your digital life. And we want to try and help prevent that as much as we possibly can. We hope you found this section on password managers useful. If you haven't seen the previous 2 videos of our free practical cybersecurity awareness course, you can find links in the description below. Next week, Heath Adams will be releasing our 4th and final video in this series, and we will be making this course available for free on TCM Security Academy with notes and quizzes. So please be sure to stay tuned for that. And as always, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. This greatly helps us out. As always, take it easy.